So in Mounce chapter 10, that's what we're dealing with here, dealing with chapter 10. So let me go ahead and just jot that down here when we think about third declension endings, Mounce chapter 10. We're dealing with stems that end with what? Yes, stems that end with consonants. So going back to our first noun rule, stems that end with omicron are in the second declension, right? Stems that end with alpha or eta are first declension, and then those consonantal stems are third declension. That means that the noun stem ends with a consonant. And wouldn't you know it, we couldn't just use first and second declension endings for our third declension nouns. They have to have their own unique set. And in the case of third declension nouns, what we're going to see is that the masculine and feminine third declension nouns are going to behave identically to each other. And it's the neuter form that's going to be much more different. And in this sort of a context, you remember those two termination adjectives that made the masculine and feminines the same, and the neuters were different? Our third declension case endings are going to kind of work that way. All right? So, I'm just going to introduce you to the case endings themselves here and using this chart. And I handed this out just a little earlier. So you all should have this chart in front of you where we have all three declensions of case endings here. Now, take a look at our nominative singular forms for third declension. We have a sigma for masculine and feminine, and for neuter, there is just the dash here. What does that mean? What is that? What does that dash mean?
No case.
There isn't a case ending. Or, to put another way, the case ending is 0. There is no case ending. That is a case ending, to have no case ending. All right? So, let's just go ahead and take a word like sark. Okay, that is the stem for the word flesh, sark. And it's actually a feminine noun, so let me put hey in front of it. So what happens when I have a kappa and a sigma case ending for the nominative case of sark? We have a slight consonant change, and the kappa sigma is going to become a xi. So you're not going to see the sigma case ending all the time. It's going to sometimes be obscured by the vowel we have here, or by the consonant we have here, where this is a combination of a kappa and a sigma. Okay? Now, I'm going to go over a handout that goes through some of these consonant changes. But for now, what I'm just wanting you to see is that I don't have a stem vowel right here that I'm adding my case ending to, right? Does anybody see a stem vowel before the sigma? There's not a stem vowel. I've got a consonant at the end of that noun stem. And that means that looking to the part of the noun, the stem, before the case ending is, well, it's the counsel of despair to look there to find the gender of the noun, isn't it? Yeah. You can't tell the gender of the noun because there's no omicron and there's no alpha or eta here. That means that when you want to know the gender of a third declension noun, guess what? The only thing you've got to go on is the article that accompanies it in the lexical form. That's it. That's it. So memorize your article with your new nouns that are third declension nouns. Okay, so hey sark with the sigma case ending for the flesh as a subject would be hey sarks. Hey sarks. Let me get rid of that little doohickey there. What about the genitive? Genitive singular. Well, it's omicron sigma here. So sark is going to be sark plus the omicron sigma, and that's going to stay the way it is. There won't be any consonant changes here, so it'll be sarkos. Sarkos. Now, that looks a lot like a masculine singular nominative noun, doesn't it? Okay, that os ending. That can throw you off because we're used to seeing an omicron stem, sigma after it in the nominative. This is where This is where your article is your friend, because the genitive singular and feminine form of the article is taste. So if I had them together, it would be taste sarcos. Does that look genitive to you? That taste? It should look genitive, singular, feminine. And so even though this may look a little bit odd to you, the article is your friend here. So if you've got an article with your noun, pay attention to the article. The article is always true, even when the noun looks funny to us.
Will it always have an article, or chances where?
No, there'll be times when your nouns can be anarthrous, so you can't always depend on it. But if you've got one, it's definitely a bonus. Right. Now, do you remember how, with your nouns in your vocab list, he always gives you the genitive singular case ending? Do you remember that? Like with logos, he gave you what? Logos, and then he gave you right? Now, why does he give you the genitive singular? With first and second declension nouns, you don't really need it, although it can be helpful. There are some forms where it does help us. And we'll talk about that maybe in a minute. But you really need it for your third declension forms. So for sarks, what you're given is this. This is the lexical form. Remember, the lexical form is always the nominative form. So looking at sarks, can you tell what the real true blue noun stem is by looking at the nominative singular form of flesh? You can't. It's been obscured, hasn't it? But then the genitive singular form will also be given to you, and it's sarkos. So here, you can always find out what the noun stem is by dropping the genitive case ending. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Right? Let it go, and what you're always left with is the stem. This is the real stem here. You can't find the stem by looking at the nominative. It'll be obscured by that sigma that's interacting with the consonant. Look at the genitive singular, drop the genitive singular case ending, which is always os, right? Drop the genitive singular case ending, and what you're left with is the true noun stem. And it'll always end with a consonant. It should, because third declension nouns have stems that end with consonants. Okay? Now, the dative singular is going to be sark plus the iota, and so it's sarki. And our accusative is sarka. Okay? This nu is an alternate ending. If the alpha is not used, then the nu is used. So when I've got that little slash, it means either or. The alpha is the most common one, but sometimes nu will be the accusative case ending. All right?
On that word? Or
no, just in general. Okay, so for sarks, it's going to use the alpha. Always. Okay? But there's other third declension nouns that will use the nu instead of the alpha.
And we just have to know.
And we're going to learn those as we come to them. Yeah. Okay. So you should learn both of them because they are both accusative singular case endings for masculine or feminine nouns. But the alpha is the more common. Okay. The nominative plural is, again, sark plus s, and it becomes sarkis. So this is a circus. Hey, isn't this beautiful? We have own for our genitive plural. Sark plus own is sarcone. Sark plus c, this is the dative plural. Notice that it's the same as the dative plural on the first and second declension, except you've reversed the letters, right? This was iota sigma. This one is sigma iota. And then the nu here is movable. That means that it could be there, but it might not be there. So the nu is not really a case ending. It's just a consonant that's added to break up vowel sequences. And then, yes, so sark. So by the way, yes. So the kappa sigma is going to become a c. So sark c. Let me write that over here. And the new, again, is movable. So you might see it, you might not. So that C is obscuring the true blue consonant stem, right? So how do you find it? Again, always go back to the genitive singular form in your lexical form and drop the os, and you've got the real stem.
We won't always see that. It's just with certain letters that the sigma does that with, right?
Yeah, that sigma is going to create a lot of problems, and that's why I've got this handout we'll talk about. Sometimes you'll see that sigma, and sometimes you won't. Yeah. Okay. So, and then the accusative plural is sarkas. Sarkas. Okay. That is the accusative plural case ending is not just a sigma, like you've got that over here. It is alpha sigma. Alpha sigma. So make sure you've got that straight. Now, let's just talk a little bit more about these case endings here. One of the things that we like to do, if possible, is to see patterns, to draw similarities where we can between the case endings that we already have learned and the case endings that we're learning that are new on the third declension side. Looking at the first and second declension, are there any similarities here? Well, I've got a sigma here for the nominative singular, for masculine and feminine. What do I have over here? At least one of them's a sigma, you see. So let that be just a little connection point. Here, I have an omicron sigma. I don't have any omicron sigmas here, do I? So you just got to learn this one. Here, we had iotas, and they always subscript, don't they? They always subscript where possible, and the only time they can is under a long vowel. And so each of these noun stems will have a lengthened stem vowel. But since there are no vowels here before the iota, I'm not going to subscript the iota here. It'll stay put. No vowel to subscript under. But it is the same case ending. It's iota. So that is a helpful thing. Okay? And then here, the alpha, which is the more common one, is not like any of our accusative singular case endings we've learned. But the nu, that is the alternate accusative singular, is similar that way. And so let that help you there. Over here, epsilon sigma is our nominative. We don't have any of those, so that doesn't help. But own is identical, isn't it? All the way across. By the way, notice Mounce put those underlines under the omega to indicate what? That the stem vowel is obscured and it's taken over by this omega, right? Here, the kappa is still going to be there when the own is attached, so nothing weird happens here. I can still see the end of the noun stem. The sigma iota is sort of the same as these, except just in a different order. And then the os is not the same at all. So these three places are similar. These three places over here are not. Oh, excuse me, these 5 places that have the yellow are similar. Okay? Now, let's just talk about neuter forms real quickly for a moment. Probably ought to use a different color ink, so let me do this. And let's see, what's one of the neuter forms he teaches us? Let's use anima. The stem of the word for name is omicron, nu, omicron, mu, alpha, tau. It's animat. Okay? That's the neuter word for a name. Notice that I'm going to add no case ending here. Okay, so the case ending is 0. One of the things that we're going to learn is that final tau will not stay put in Greek, and it will drop out. Okay? And so I'm going to be left with anima with an alpha there. Okay? We're going to go over this in a minute. In the genitive, though, it's anamatos. Do you see how in the genitive I get to see my whole vowel, my whole noun stem? the tau doesn't drop out because it's not at the end of the word. And so what do I do to find my real true blue noun stem? Drop the os, and I'm left with the real noun stem, anamat. So there is a tau in this noun stem. Because it's a third declension noun, the noun stem has to end with what? A consonant, right? If you try to look at anima and go, oh, the noun stem, it ends with an alpha. That's not true. This is a third declension noun. It has to end, its stem has to end with a consonant.
So,
It's really anamat.
so do all third declension nouns drop?
What's that?
The case. Do all third declension nouns drop the consonant? Because it seems like that in here in the nominative singular.
Only if it ends with a tau. If it's
Okay.
If it's a third declension noun stem that ends with a tau and it's neuter, such that there's no case ending added to it, then I'm going to be left with a tau at the end. And final taux can't stay there. They always drop out.
Because on here it does it with the K, with the kappa.
Yeah, the kappa is not a tau.
It dropped it.
Well, no, it didn't drop the kappa. Remember, it became a xi, which is a kappa plus a sigma. So the kappa is there. But we're writing it with that letter xi. Right, because the xi makes a k and a s sound. Okay, so the dative singular is the same. So remember our rule about how neuters and masculines are the same case ending in the genitive and the dative? That's true even in third declension nouns. It just so happens that the masculine and the feminine are also identical here. But neuters are the same. By the way, neuters are the same as each other in the nominative and the accusative. You see that? No case ending. So that's still following our noun rules. Okay, so mat with the iota, the tau is still there. Anamati. And then anamat with no ending in the accusative will drop the tau and it becomes anama. Okay? The plural forms. Anamat. Oops. Oh yeah, those are terrible. Let's get rid of those. Anamata. That's my nominative plural neuter. Anamata. Add the alpha, the tau is still there. Anamatone. Tau still there. But what happens when I have anamatsi? The tau and the sigma are going to undergo a consonant change, and the tau is going to fall out. And again, we'll see this in our little sheet, and it'll become anamasi. Okay. The true blue noun stem with the tau has been obscured by this sigma. Okay, so the sigmas and lack of an ending here can obscure our real noun stem. So why do we always go to the genitive singular to find our noun stem? Because the tau is there. And then the accusative plural neuter is the same as the nominative anamata. So I won't write it again. So that's the way third declension nouns are formed. Let's just take a look at page 81, and we'll read the forms. Remember, sark is the stem, but the stem at the top of the page there on page 81, it has an asterisk next to it. What is that telling us? It's telling us that the stem never occurs in real Greek in isolation from its case ending. It'll always occur with some case ending, so you'll never see the stem hanging all by itself. Okay? Nouns always have a case ending, so one of these 8 forms will occur with sark as the base. So let's read these and we'll translate them as we go. Sarx would be flesh or body. Sarkos would be of flesh or of a body. Sarki would be to flesh or to a body. And sarka is flesh or body, like I love flesh or I love a body. Now, for the plural, we can't really add an es to flesh. Fleshes. That doesn't really work. So let's go with body for our translation here. Sarkis is bodies. Bodies are cool. Sarkone of bodies. Sarksi is to bodies or with bodies, and sarcos, bodies. We have sarcos, we have bodies. Now, over in the middle column, we have onomat is the stem, but the lexical form is always the nominative singular. So what's my lexical form going to be? Onoma. The word that you associate with this noun for name is going to be missing a crucial part of its stem, which is why you need to learn the genitive singular with it. Okay? So onoma is a name. Onomatos is of a name. Onomati, to a name. And onoma, a name. Onomata, names. Onomaton, of names. Onomasi is to or with names. And onomata is names. All right, so there's our introduction to the basic concept of the third declension case endings. What I want to do is walk you through the handout I gave you just a little while ago called consonant changes. Ain't misbehaving? Of course, these consonants are misbehaving. That's why they become problematic for us. So let's take a look at this. If you can grab a hold of some of these consonant changes now, it's going to go a long way towards helping you acquire Greek when you start to experience what looks like irregular forms. The fact of the matter is they're not irregular. These are patterned changes that happen. And if we can learn the patterns now, then when we come across them later, we'll just say, oh, I already know that. I'm just applying that to a new situation here. Okay? So, let's see what happens. Labials. Anytime we have a labial, which has a sigma after it, it's going to undergo a change here. Now, what are labials? What does the word labia mean in Latin? Labia. It means lips, okay? And labials are consonants that are produced with the lips. Think about these consonants that I've got right here. The P, the beta, and the phi. Do you have to use your lips to produce those?
Yes.
Yes, you do. Try to pronounce a P without using your lips. Oh, wow. All right? Can't do it. What about a beta? A B? That sounds great. What about a phi sound? A F? Can you do a F without your lip? No. And probably both of the lips might have been used. It might have been F. F. Have we talked about my manager at the restaurant I worked at in college? Not in here. I had a manager at a restaurant I worked at as a server. His name was Mario, and he was from the Philippines. And he had real trouble here with pronouncing his P sounds. So when he would try to say Philippines, you know what he would say? He would say Philippines. I am from the Philippines. So for us, a PH or an F sound came out as a P sound. And then he had the opposite problem. When he had to pronounce a P sound, like Pat, well, he would pronounce a PH sound. And unfortunately, we had a waitress whose name was Pat. And every time he said her name, all of us just hung our heads in shame. Because he would say, hey, Fat, come here. And we felt so bad for Fat, because Fat was a little bit overweight. And it just wasn't a good situation. Okay? Anyhow, anytime you add an S sound after a labial, it's going to become in Greek a psi. Psi. Okay? And when that psi is written, it's going to obscure which labial consonant you started with. Now, can you see how this is going to be a problem with third declension nouns that have a stem that end with a labial? Yeah, that's going to happen, right? I'm going to have some noun stems that end with a labial, and in the nominative singular, what am I going to add? going to add an S to it, and then it's going to become a psi, and I won't know what the real stem is, but where will I always go to find it? Go to the genitive singular, and that true labial will show up there. Drop the os, and you've got it.
This will happen in the dative plural.
Right. Dative plural, you're going to add a sigma iota to that stem, and it's going to interact there as well. Exactly. Okay. What are velar consonants? Velar consonants are consonants that are produced in what's called the velar area. What's the velar area? If you were to open your mouth and look in the mirror and you see that little punching bag in the back of your throat, right in front of it, at the top, that's called the velum, or the velar region. Right? And we pronounce the kappa sound. Do you see how the back of your tongue comes up and makes contact with the velum? The gamma, g, and then the he. Your tongue is in the same place, but you're just blowing air through it, right? He, k, g, ch. All of them are produced in the same way. Add a sigma to those sounds, and you get a xi. Xi. So my third declension nominative case ending for a masculine or feminine third declension noun, if the noun stem ends with one of these velars, I'm going to get a xi there for the lexical form, for the nominative. And it's going to obscure which velar I started with. But where will I find the real velar? Go to the genitive singular, and you will find it. Now, dentals. Dentals plus a sigma. What will happen there? Dentals plus the sigma don't do what these first two do. The dentals fall out before a sigma. Now, think about what dental means. Dental means teeth. And what kinds of things fall out? Well, teeth do, right? So it makes sense. Dentals fall out, okay? Maybe to put it a little bit more dramatically, dentals fall into Sheol, okay? You don't see them. They're completely gone. Okay? So what are my dentals? Well, those are the sounds that are produced with the tongue hitting the back of the front teeth. T, d, and th. You see how the tongue is making contact? Y'all say it. T, d, th. We're hitting the back of the teeth there with our tongues. Those are dentals. And dentals followed by a sigma. We produce just the sigma with the dental falling out. Okay, the teeth fall out. And when that happens, you won't be able to see which dental you started with. But the genitive singular will tell you what it was. Okay? Now, what are some other sound changes? A nu plus a sigma becomes just a sigma. That is to say, the nu also falls out. Why? Well, pronounce an N sound. Everybody. N. Now pronounce a T sound. T. D. Th. N. Is your tongue in the same place? It is, because nu is a dental nasal. And because it's a dental, it's going to fall out before the sigma. All right? Now, remember, the genitive singular of logos is logus, right? It's really not us. What it is this. It's logon plus a sigma. The accusative singular is logon, right? The accusative plural just adds a sigma to the logon. But nus before sigma do what? They drop out. And when they drop out, I'm left with a short omicron here, right? And this is something that happens frequently in language. When I lose a consonant and it goes away, languages tend to compensate for the loss of a consonant by lengthening a short vowel into a long one in the environment where a consonant is lost. And so this short omicron is going to compensatorily lengthen into omicron upsilon. Now remember, we call that a diphthong, right? And diphthongs are how many vowels? I mean, how many vowel sounds does a diphthong make? It makes one long vowel sound. It consists of two vowel letters, but it's one sound, and it's always long, right? So a diphthong is long. So this diphthong is the result of compensatory lengthening. The nu of logons fell out. Okay? That helps you great if it doesn't forget it for a while. What about nu tau before a sigma? Real quickly. Does a dental before a sigma fall out? Yes. And that'll leave a nu before a sigma. Will that fall out? Yes. So both of them will fall out. And so nu tau plus sigma becomes just a sigma. Okay? So we'll find some places where that happens. And then the final tau plus no case ending or nothing, a final tau all by itself, what happens? Well, the tau falls out. I call this throwing in the towel. Okay? Greek throws in the tau. If the tau's at the end of a word and there's no case ending and it's still at the end of the word, throw in the tau. It's gone. It's out. Okay? And this is what happens with anima. Because anima really is, it's really animat, right? What's my neuter case ending? It's nothing, which means the tau stands by itself. And what do? I throw in the tau in the nominative, and so it's anima. Okay? But when I have anima with the actual animat, with the genitive case ending, is the tau at the end of the word anymore? That's why we don't throw in the tau. It gets to stay right where it is. And now you can see the real stem of anima in the genitive singular. Okay? So when the tau stands at the end of a word, throw in the tau. Okay? So those are all very common consonant changes. Learn this, and you will conquer the world.
Wow.